We'll see. We'll see.
All right.
Black
Are you
people, Black Lives
excited?
Matter.
Oh yeah. Yeah, life. Not names.
Exactly.
Yo, hey,
Siji, you on?
can you hear me?
I hear you, man.
You can hear me. How you doing, mate?
Yeah. How you
Hello.
doing?
I'm good. So,
Siji.
Filippo, yeah?
Yeah.
Filippo,
Call me
this
whatever
is
is
Siji.
the simplest way that you have to call my name. It's fine. I call you Luigi. It's perfect for me. The pronunciation.
Fair enough. You're
How
both
you
doing
doing,
well.
buddy?
Great.
Yeah, bro. I'm good. As I said, it's been a long week.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long couple of weeks actually.
Last 2
I've got
weeks,
this. Yeah, it's been a lot. I've got this really annoying beeping noise. So hopefully it doesn't come through here. But one of my neighbours has
You know
her
what?
alarm.
Yeah, we've had highway noises thanks to Filippo here. So
Oh, is it okay?
but used to all sorts basically. Nah, man, but it's good. It's good that you actually joined us, man. I'm really glad to have you on.
Are you
I wanna
surprised
hear-
I got here on time as well?
No, because I think when you want to, you can put your mind to, you can do it. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, even though I know that you probably downloaded Skype maybe 5 minutes before the actual call. It's like, oh god, what's gonna happen here?
2 minutes before.
2 minutes.
before.
But no. I wanted to have you on the call just because I wanted to. Well, first of all, it's nice to have a guest. Filippo, you agree, right?
Yeah. We need to explore new brains. So your brain is the first. So it's perfect.
Mm,
You need to examine
Exactly.
new brains.
okay.
Exactly. Because I think we're kind of draining out our thoughts, and we needed some new, fresh minds. And I
Fresh
couldn't think of
meat
anyone better.
and fresh mind. Yeah. Fresh meat
meat
also.
and
Bro,
fresh
I'm going to hang up now if you call me fresh meat again. That's not how I roll,
fresh
but...
meat and fresh minds. But
Nah,
I think
Beaver's fresh,
especially exactly because I think based on what's been happening over the last few weeks, it would be nice to have an external input. And I also read the article, the one you sent me, which I thought was brilliant. I like, I would say, practical solutions to problems. I don't like overbearing anger, right? So I like people who actually can analyze the situation and go, okay, I think this is what I've gone through, and this is what we can actually do to, solve a problem. So that's what I liked about what you wrote. What has been your thoughts generally on the last, 2 weeks? Like, how do you feel?
Oh, boy. I'd say exhausted and drained are like two emotions or two words that come to mind. Let's be honest, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. It realistically isn't going to be the last, but I feel the place that I'm in on a personal level means that this recent incident and the ones that happened just before this, the Arbery one as well, it hit me deep. And I think it's for two reasons. One, as a more mature guy now, and my perspective on the world, it saddens me when I see this happening to another black person, but where I can imagine myself in their shoes. So when I actually put myself into their shoes, and I just imagine how difficult it would have been for Arbery, like his emotion, his fear, as he's running and have been chased down for no other reason than the colour of his skin. And then, we've all seen the video. We know what happened with George Floyd. And those moments, like just before his death, just thinking, how can someone have that level of fear and anxiety for literally no other reason than the colour of their skin? So it pissed me off, I'm not going to lie. And what kind of set off this whole kind of activism, I suppose, is seeing that it was very one-sided or lopsided in terms of who was actually talking out about it amongst my friendship group.
Interesting.
The people who were speaking about it were those in the black community. I saw a lot of posts about them, but outrage. And this is like the day it happened, the day after. And I noticed you know what? I've not seen anything from any of my white friends.
Yeah.
Last time round, I saw nothing from my white friends, and it's like, why is that? Like, what is the actual reason? Because I'm also past the age now. Like, I don't roll in big circles anymore. I have a small group of friends. I like it that way. So if I offend people these days, I don't care so much. But I wasn't looking to offend any. Tell me if I'm going on, by the way. But I wasn't looking to.
No.
Cool. So yeah, I wasn't looking to offend anyone, but I kind of just asked a question: why is it that when things like this happen, I never hear anything from any of you? It's silence.
Yeah.
And I had some really engaging conversations. You know, I had like people actually reached out to me and said, "These are the reasons why I don't speak up."
Yeah.
They don't know what to say. They don't feel qualified. They feel saying something might actually be construed as some kind of, I don't know. Basically, they're not qualified to speak on a subject. Also, they don't think actually speaking on social media says anything. Like, everyone knows it's an outrageous thing, so why do we need to talk? So based on that, I just put my notes down. I've kind of sent it to them, had those conversations, and said, look, if you're not saying anything, you're just as bad as those who are ignorant and those who are actually doing it, as far as I'm concerned. Because everyone has a voice, everyone has influence in their own small circles, and by you not saying anything, it's kind of feeding that ignorance. So people accepted it, people appreciate what I said, and that kind of made me feel a bit better because it's like, okay, these people they're not racists, but they're just uninformed. And the thing is, I speak to a lot of black people, but they're tired of trying to explain it to people, or they no longer want to. And I think there's a balance there somewhere because on the one hand, as a black person, I can be angry about it, I can be shouting about it, but if you're shouting to people who don't understand why you're shouting,
that's not going to make the situation better.
It's not going to affect change. At the same time, if those people do understand, and a lot of those people, there's a lot of people at middle ground. So you have a racist who, no matter what happens, they're going to believe the same thing. You saw my LinkedIn post, didn't you? There's certain people there. You could say whatever you want. But they won't even read it. They'll just go, white power or white lives matter. You know, stuff which is irrelevant to a point that's being raised. So I'm not trying to target those people, but the people in the middle, those who do have that empathy, but they've just not engaged with it, they're the ones who I think can help make the difference. Because ultimately, as a marginalized person, as a marginalized group, we can only do so much. Change is only going to happen when more people join as well. So what's been encouraging, I think, with this current movement is that I've seen a lot more people getting involved outside of the black community. I think the pennies dropped for a lot of people saying enough is enough. I can see how these people are suffering. No more. We're going to take a stand. So I just really hope the momentum keeps up. Eventually, the news will go on to another subject. There'll probably be a second wave of coronavirus. But I'm going to be watching people now to see if they continue and maintain the conversation because I think that's really important.
Absolutely. So I'm going to Siji, I'm going to come back to you, but Filippo, what? Because I know you've been watching all this as well, and you're probably more black than we are.
Very
exactly.
likely.
Exactly. Yeah. What has been your? Why do you think this seems different from the other situations? Because, like Shiji said, there's been a lot more momentum, as per reactions and the sustained effort to actually bring about change. I mean, why do you think this has resonated so much with people? I mean, from your perspective, all the way.
My cut of this situation is that actually racism is not that much involved because it's something that it happens only in the US, basically, this kind of situation. But as in all parts of the society, it's full of criminals. Also, the criminals, they are also in the police, in the police service. That is for sure. This guy is a criminal. If I were a cop in this specific period of time, I would take this chance to join the protest in order to support this phase, because people need to speak out louder than before and take this situation for the to bring a new future on this kind of system, because it's the U.S. system, I think.
So do you think there's
yeah.
So do you think there's racism in Italy? And do you think, I mean, I guess Siji and I can speak for Britain, but do you think there's racism overtly in Italy? And do you think and if you don't think so, do you think it's more criminal activity? Do you think it's more of a ignorance situation? What do you think is
I think
going
it's
on?
ignorance. It's ignorance, because there are many people, racist people, that they are very old, which means
Okay.
old mentality, which
Is that in
means that
Italy?
they didn't live any kind of situation of integration or whatever, because Italy is, it's we are just having now black people being part of our country, like
Yeah.
Balotelli, In the past, we
Yeah.
never deal with this kind of people. So in the mentality of the older generations, there is not this kind of, they can still see the black people like people making robberies, criminals, but it's not like that. It's not like that. In that sense, I think that the UK is more thanks also to the colonialism that
Yeah.
educated the people, even if it's a crime, colonialism, of course. But there is more integration. You can see all different kind of people: black, white, red, yellow, at any kind of society. So all the people are used to that kind of situation. Okay. Italy is still needs to grow, but in the younger generations, this kind of problem is not there. Because if we are saying, if we talk about racism, when you hear some boos at the stadium, it's just to the good players, because they are fearing the good players. You can be white, you can be black. If you are good, the people, they are going to boo you.
I mean, but here's my take, right? Because I think you raised a good point about criminality, right? So I think
they are everywhere, man.
yeah, exactly.
Even for religion is full of criminals that they take advantage of this in order to be criminals.
Exactly, but I want to narrow in on the point of racism, right? So even whether you're a criminal or not, I think you can use racism as a tool. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, also, yeah.
Exactly,
Sure,
right.
sure.
So when you go to the football stadium and let's say Balotelli is playing and they're booing Balotelli, part of that is football banter. But once you start making monkey noises, then you're using the racism angle to
Correct. Yeah.
exactly right. So it's a whole encompassing situation, but at the heart of it is still that disregard for human life, right? Because and that's what we see. That's what we see in the U.S. Right. So when I look at what's happening in the U.S., I go that could happen in the U.K. I mean, shoot, I don't know what you think about this, but Meghan Markle couldn't. I think she didn't even get off her honeymoon before they even started attacking her, right? So, and I'm not making a case for the royal family or whatever, but the fact of the matter is that there was no protection from Meghan Markle except from her husband, of course, who had probably saw that coming a mile away, and of course, they had to do what they needed to do to protect the family, right? So,
Yeah.
so Siji, I don't know what you think about racism in the UK generally. It's a little more subversive. What are your thoughts on that? Because it's not violent, overtly violent. I've never experienced it. I don't know if you have. I know there are underlying currents in the society, but what are your thoughts on the UK generally?
The UK is racist as well. Like racism's not an American issue. Racism is everywhere. The UK is racist too. I think America being America, a lot of it gets brought out in the media more. But let's not get it twisted. In the UK, black people suffer racism every day. And when we talk about racism, we have to look at it from a number of different angles. We're not just talking people, with swastikas and all that kind of thing. But it's like that's like overt racism. That stuff is obvious that you see. There's a lot of covert racism as well. The type of racism that has it's underlying racism. It's certain actions, it's certain behaviours, it's certain things that happen which are part of the issue with racism. If you understand what I'm saying.
Of course.
And as a black person in Britain, I've experienced that a lot. I've experienced it throughout my life. I've experienced it even within my friendship groups. You know, I think, but again, the older I'm getting, the more I'm just less tolerant of that kind of thing. But it's kind of it's kind of like built into the fabrics of society. Even with the police, again, I think the Americans have a big issue with the police there and police brutality and their attitude towards black people. And as I said, everything in America is heightened. If I take my LinkedIn post, if you look at the comment section, a lot of the people who are like completely, doesn't matter what I've written, are just flat out talking about how. So, Filippo, just for some background, the article that I wrote on LinkedIn is talking about why I didn't see anyone on the platform talking about racial equality off the back of everything that's happened. And I said, diversity is happening in the workplace too. It's not just the workplace, it's an alternate reality. And I put a few kind of practical tips in there for what businesses could do to improve their equality between the different races. Now, in the comment section, I had people from America go straight into, but what's about black on black crime? And I'm like, what's that got to do with the workplace? It's a distraction tactic. And then you'd have other Americans jumping off the back of that. And what that shows me is there's people like in America, there's a mentality of certain people. If you look at even racism as a whole, when did slavery get abolished? I think it was 1865 in America. Right? That's only, 150 or so years ago, 155 years ago. That's not that long ago.
No.
The thing that happened with Emmett Till, I know that was like 90 years after slavery had finished. And that was still able to happen. And 65 years on from that now, we can still see it. So if you look at the timelines, there's people who are still alive during the time of Emmett Till who would have passed on their racist views to their children, who are now adults and are now acting on those views and have their own children who are now being indoctrinated into that too. So it still exists there. And in the UK, the police, it's a bit different because we don't have guns in this country. It's not been legalized. But there is still police brutality. If you come to London, come to certain ends in London and speak to people and how they've been kind of approached by police and how the police acts differently towards black people compared to other races, it's still a big issue. And I mean, Tola, you'll know me. You know I don't get involved in anything like that. But I've been stopped by the police a number of times too. I've been walking home. I was living in quite a nice area. Walking home at night, police van comes up and stops me, asking what I'm doing in the area. I start interrogating me. I said, look, I live here. That's my car there. They take my ID. They start doing all these checks. I didn't get aggressive about it, but I did kind of say to them, like, you see what's going on here. Like, there's no reason why you'd be stopping me.
Absolutely.
They eventually let me go. But as I was walking down that road, like 2 or 3 minutes further down the road, I could see the police van round the corner at the top of the road, like basically the lights off hiding, just to watch where I was going, to see what was going to happen next. So when you're being profiled like that, it shows that there's something wrong. There's something in the system that has a negative effect towards black people. And I think it's got to a point now where like we're just fed up with it. So we're now speaking out, and certain people aren't going to like that because ultimately, when equality comes, it's going to upset the status quo. It's going to upset lots of things, and it means certain people will probably lose out because they're used to having that privilege. So there's people resisting it, but I think there's more people who are on the side of change, which I think is positive. And just to kind of touch on that football point, a player being booed, banter, everyone can boo a player. But the moment you bring race into it, any kind of monkey chants, any kind of throwing bananas on the pitch, that is unacceptable. that's not banter in any way, shape, or form. As soon as you start targeting someone's race, that moves past realms of banter, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I never knew that story. Of you actually being stopped by the police, so that's quite something.
Well,
I've never. Oh, really?
Mm.
Well, you got to share that with me.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm always careful, because I know I haven't had that experience, right? But I'm very careful not to go. It doesn't exist, right? Like I said, I feel I've experienced racism, sure, but not by the police, and even so, I feel that there are lots of people like you rightly said, who have experienced that even in the UK. Right. I think I was watching TV just about maybe 30 minutes ago, and Boris Johnson came up, and I think someone made a comment of some sort, and I just kind of googled Boris Johnson for some reason. I think my girlfriend had brought up a comment that he had made, and he had made a racist comment about black people in 2002 in an article that he wrote. So he called them pickaninnies, which is an American racial slur for black people, almost like around the Jim Crow era, where there's a caricature of black people as dumb, as monkeys, as buffoons. And he also referred to that smile as a watermelon smile, right? So this guy is the prime minister of Britain, right? That is reflective of the society, right? Not only is he a racist, but he also
There is a
champion.
side of the brain, like that.
Yeah, exactly, right. So there is a problem. There's a systematic problem, right? And again, I think one of the important things I've taken away from this last 2 weeks has been the education that I have had, right? Because I think the black experience is universal. I think if you put a black person from Nigeria in England, that guy is going to inevitably experience what a British black is going to go through, because white people generally don't know the distinction. They see black, right? And I'm not talking about all white people. I'm saying those who choose to view people by color, right? So it's been an education for me as well, because the more you know about the systematic oppression, techniques of oppression, such as the incarceration rates in the US, the fact that black people are less likely to get a mortgage than white people. They're actually red zone. There's a term called red zone, where they actually mark out parts of the map and say, okay, that's a black demographic. They're not going to get a mortgage. They're going to stay where they are. That's systematic oppression, right? And the fact that we're actually seeing a systematic and a controlled and consistent attempt to bring about change this time around is quite remarkable, especially with the fact that there's a pandemic in the air, right? So it's a big thing. I think it's a step in the right direction. I think there's a lot to do, especially as you get educated as to what is really going on. It's quite a sad situation, and it should not be tolerated by anyone who has any ounce of decency in their bones, right? White or black or whatever, right? I think part of the reason why I tend to take a more philosophical approach to such issues is because I've lived in a homogeneous country, so all black, right? And I know that we have a tendency, human beings generally have a tendency to kind of go, okay, there are no whites around here, it's just us. Now we're going to turn on each other, right? So my philosophical approach is that human beings tend to have
narrow
a way of turning
mindset.
against each other. Exactly.
Narrow
It's about
mindset, I call,
in it for
because
me.
also the US is the country that voted for Obama also as a president.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
So it means that the majority of the people, they voted for Obama, which was the first black president in the United States. But if the system is like that, not even a single person can,
Absolutely. But my angle is, again, I like to take the narrow view in terms of analyzing each situation methodically, right? So, systematic oppression. How do you bring about change in a system like the US where there's police brutality, where people are profiled based on their color, where people can't get a mortgage, where people can't get the right sort of education? It's destructive. And like you just said, it's been happening. It's even since, especially since the slave trade ended, because it was like, okay, how many different creative ways can we think of to suppress Black people, right? And they've come up with so many ways, right? So I'm not the change the hearts kind of guy. I don't give a fuck to that degree, because I know human beings are human beings, right? I'm more about, let's get a critical mass of individuals that can bring about systematic change. If a police officer kills a Black man, he should be held to account. If some guy posted something on LinkedIn about being racially abused at work, and the HR officer did not side with him, they sided with the person who denied the accusation, right? So if a Black person is abused at work, that should be taken seriously and carried forward, right? So objectivity, I don't know how you can introduce that. You need a more balanced framework in terms of the sort of people you hire. Again, I think that's a harder thing to achieve, because that's where money is involved. In terms of police brutality, I think that's more realistic, because, like Martin Luther King said, right? Someone asked him, like, you know what, I don't think this is going to change hearts and minds. He said, yes, but at least I'm not going to get lynched, right? So I don't care if you look at me on the train. Look at me all you want, but don't touch me. I'm going to, I want to go home with my family. Like that's it, right? So it's a long journey ahead of us. I think these conversations need to be had objectively and openly. I think, like you said, I think there were a bunch of people on his profile who was just going white lives matter and all that. So, okay, you have people who have made up their minds, and that's where I go the other way, and I go, there's evil in the world, right? Which is why we need a critical mass of individuals who can bring about systematic change. You need that consistent, sustained pressure. Otherwise, they'll kind of look the other way and say, oh, okay, it's they don't seem to care or mind too much, So, I mean, that's my thoughts on that, really. But I mean, do you guys have the poem? I think let's try to lighten things up a little bit, because I think it's good to have an escape. I think it's good to be able to vent, but also just kind of go, okay, talk shit for a bit, Exactly.
Yeah.
I think to that. Exactly. So this poem is called "Blowin' in the Wind."
Have you sent it to me?
I sent it to you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually wanted to do something a little different, since we have quite a famous guest on our podcast today. We want to have you as engaged as possible, Siji. So I think what I'm going to do.
My attention span's like 5 minutes.
Yeah, man. But no, we have like 3 stanzas, right? So So because you're the guest, I'm going to ask you, do you want to read one stanza? You can say yes or no.
3 Musketeers.
Yeah, exactly. So do you want to read one? All right, so you can read the first one. Filippo, you're going to read the second one.
No, but I have a broken English. Why do
No, it doesn't matter. No, they love you. So you got to do it. Right, and I'll read the last one. All right?
No, you have to read the second one, so I can...
And you read the last one.
Yeah.
So you can destroy the entire thing.
So I can understand the pronunciation. It's the same.
All right, man,
this is Blowin' in the Wind, isn't it?
Blowin' in the Wind, yeah, exactly, by Bob Dylan. So Blowin' in the Wind by Bob Dylan. Shuji, do you want to start?
Yeah, let's go for it. So,
do it, man.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
That was beautiful. You have a beautiful written voice, man.
Beautiful voice, beautiful man, beautiful minds.
You are. I mean, Filippo, you agree?
Yeah. Very charming. I wish I were a girl.
Very charming.
I wish I were a girl.
You guys weren't lying about this fresh meat business, were you?
Yeah, young and fresh meat.
Yeah, man. We're thirsty as
There are too many
9
contradictions today. Yeah, I know.
All right, man. Let me read the second stanza, then you did the last one, Filippo. All
Yeah,
right, so
rotten meat.
yes,
Here.
yeah, rotten. All right, but enough. All right, yes. And how many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? Yes, and how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
So, yeah, I like this one very much.
Yeah, all right, man. Go for it.
Third one. Yes. And
Yeah,
how
man.
many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes. And how many years must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes. And how many deaths will it take till he knows to know that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Wow.
That was beautiful. Wow, we're
Beautiful.
three beautiful. We're three beautiful men.
Yeah. Somehow.
Siji is like, what the fuck am I doing on this podcast?
Basically. I'm a bit speechless still.
Yeah, man. Okay. Blowing in the wind. I mean, Siji, what does that? First of all, what does that statement mean to you? Blowing in the wind. Any ideas? Any insight?
Okay.
I mean, in the context of the entire poem, it's saying the answer is blowing in the wind. What does that mean?
Well, so I think this poem's got a lot of ambiguity in it, isn't it? Like, because I think there's I don't know if irony is the right word, but blown in the wind. The answer is blown in the wind, but there isn't the actual answer in what he's saying. It's just like it's blown in the wind. So when I try and think about, something that blows in the wind, so in my head, I'm picturing something that might be difficult to catch or difficult to see because it's moving around. And something's blown in the wind, like take a leaf, for example. It goes in various directions. It's not in control of where it's going. It kind of goes wherever the wind takes it.
Yeah.
So you're kind of unsure of direction. And I guess the other kind of take on blowing in the wind is that when something's blowing in the wind in front of you, it's a distraction of some sort. So
interesting.
When I put that into the context of this prose or this poem or this song that he's written,
right?
I'm looking at it as he's saying there's all these different things like bad happening. The answer is blown in the wind. So basically, the answer is there, but it's not. Like it's difficult to see. He's not being clear on what the answer is.
Is it because he's not clear in terms of he doesn't have the answer, or because the answer is difficult to grasp generally?
I think both. I think, like you say, like the words you just chose there, difficult to grasp. When something's blown for wind, it's difficult to grasp, right? It's difficult to catch. I think that's the answer. I think like it's difficult to see the answer, difficult to understand the answer to these questions because they might seem obvious. Like if we take this in the context of what's going on now, the answer is obvious in my opinion as to what needs to happen from to stop people being racist. Like just for example, how do we stop racism? Get everyone to stop being racist, right? Get everyone to treat everyone equally.
Sure.
That's obvious, but it's actually a bit more complicated and tricky than that.
Yeah, it's multifaceted. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the context of it. So yeah, the answer is there. It's obvious, but at the same time, there's so many different levels and layers to it that he doesn't know the answer, and I don't think anyone actually knows the answer.
Interesting. Philly, what do you think, man?
Oh, I think it's it's brilliant. First of all, and second is a protest. It's a protest.
It
This
is.
one
It is.
for me because it's like you. How many proofs you need in order to open your fucking eyes and see the reality of the things in order to take action to change the world, you know?
Right.
This is the way I sum it up. Because all the question is saying is just to
almost highlight the different difficulties that we face in this world. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with Shiji. Well, I agree with both of you that if you say something's blowing the wind, then it's difficult to kind of get a hold of. But if it's blowing the wind, I see it as something that's all around us, right? Like the wind is all around us. You can't see it, but you know it's there, right? And if I take a more spiritual angle, just for a second, I think in the book of Genesis, it says in the beginning, the Spirit of God was blowing over the water, the sea. The Spirit of God was blowing over the sea, right? And that's a powerful image. It means that there's a force beyond our comprehension that is all around us. But yet, as difficult as it is to kind of comprehend, it's also love. Like Riley said, stop being racist. Like the answers are in there. It's like if it's in the wind, it's love, it's sacrifice, it's empathy, it's tolerance, it's all the virtues that you can ascribe to a deity such as God that I think the human race ought to expect of itself as well. Right. So if that's blowing the wind, it means that there's something that is not just hard to have a grasp on because it's so immense and it's so divine and it's so malleable. There's still an element of it's right there. It's still there. And if we look, I would say, profoundly at what our problems are, right? So Dylan said, how many roads must a man walk before you call him a man? First of all, he shouldn't have to walk down any roads, right? So even in that question, there's an answer that to why do I need to prove to you that I'm a man? You see what I mean? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Why should they be in prison in the first place? So the answer is there, but like Shuji said, I think the complexity of the situation is such that when you say, okay, how do we bring about systematic change? That can take, well, so far it's taken over 100 years since slavery, right? So it's not an easy problem, but it's an easy ideology to possess that everyone deserves equal opportunity, dignity, freedom, right? So I agree with Filippo that it's like a protest then because I mean Dylan never the idea is like he never wanted to be known as that. He was just a songwriter, but he spoke profoundly to the situation, and I think
and he was
remember
also very realist in this poem because at the end the answer is blowing in the wind. So it's like
it's there.
It's very discouraged, you know.
You think so?
It's a person that is accepting the reality that nobody will fix the situation. Blowing in the wind, you means that you are blowing nothing.
Interesting.
Well,
But that's
what do you mean by
go on.
blowing enough? Just trying to.
Because when you blow
hone in
the
about.
wind, when you try to blow in the wind, you are not eating nothing. So you are not fixing anything, you know.
Interesting.
That's why I
I
perceive Dylan very discouraged from his answer. Answer is blowing in the wind.
Well, it's. I'm sure you want to comment there. Do you have something to say there?
Go on, T.
Yeah. But that's the nature of reality, isn't it? It's very much. It's so obvious what we need to do.
Yeah.
Almost like you know who God is, right? Because when the sun is shining and the sky is blue, it's like, yes, this is beautiful. That's life. But life can also be deadly, can be traumatic, can be horrific.
Cool.
So that's the wind. That's the wind. You can't grab it, but it's your source of breath as well. It's your source of life as well. You need the wind to breathe, right? So I think it's very profound from that sense that you can't place it, but I think the answer is there, which is crazy. So I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it is and it isn't because it's because it's so opposite of
you think it's
literal in
abstract?
terms of, yeah, exactly, abstract.
Yeah,
Opposite of literal.
Okay.
Yeah, so because it's so abstract, it's like where does the listener go from there? I feel it's vague, which means it could be applied to so many different circumstances. Like it's in a way it is timeless. I don't know what year he wrote this, but
it was the 1960s.
1960s was it? If he wrote this yesterday, it would still apply, like to what's going on right now. So in that sense, it's vague enough that it stands the test of time, and that's why it's a great song, because people can listen to it throughout those different decades, looking at all the different things that happened. So from, it's after the World Wars, but I think like the Vietnam War or the Civil Rights Movement, the protests for George Floyd happening today.
Yeah.
All of those different places, this song can be played, and it will strike a chord with those who are there in the moment. So in that case, it's a great song, but it doesn't provide the answers. And I think either it's clever, but at the same time, for me, there's nothing to really go off from this.
Yeah, do you think it's frustrating for you then? Because it sounds like you're frustrated by the lack of of a solution. But I'll ask you this question: Do you think isn't that the nature of life? I'm just asking that question. Isn't that just what life is? I mean, because it's not a practical solution, like you said, but it does capture reality, because these things have always existed, which is my trouble, which is what I feel haunts me a little bit, because I know that in every shape or form, human beings always have a way of distorting the fabric of reality and doing what they shouldn't do. We always find different ways of doing evil. That's my haunting feeling. That's why, like you said, it's right that it's timeless, because it can be applied across the centuries, basically. Is that an answer? Let me ask you, Siji, is that an answer? What's the answer?
It's a deep one still. I think for what you just said. But maybe that's what he was trying to accomplish with it, like that feeling of frustration. Like I don't listen or read these words and personally get any peace from it. All it's doing for me is stating the obvious of the situation.
Interesting.
But I'm not getting any peace or comfort.
Is that your? Which is great that you're on this, because I think it's nice to have that sort of perspective, because I think Filippo read it and he's also saw disappointment, which is actually interesting, because that's like a common thing between your thoughts.
That's what's fascinating me. what is fascinating me. Yeah, about
The
this
disappointment.
poem. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of our life, the disappointment. So it's something real
Yes.
that you can perceive every day almost, if you are if you are lucky.
Yeah, I think where Shiji might be coming from is there's definitely frustration as a black person when you're looking for an answer and you can't really pinpoint it, especially when, let's face it, your life is on the line, right? So I think it's a multi-layered situation where I think you can be inspired by the poem because it's deep and it's timeless, but you can also be discouraged because you can't really pinpoint the answer. You can appreciate it for what it is. But again, I think, like I said at the start, I think it's nice to have practical solutions and not look for perfection because that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think it's brilliant. I mean, Shuji, I know that you loved poetry at school. Do you still read that kind of stuff while you're too busy making money? What are you doing, man? What's your
honestly,
thing?
honestly, my interaction with poetry over the last decade has been listening to some of the episodes that you guys have done. Like,
We appreciate that, man.
Yeah, I've not really engaged. And to be fair, that's why I found it interesting because it kind of tapped into something I did used to like many years ago. And I guess life just became busy or distracted, or other things came up that I stopped paying attention to that kind of thing. But I think I've had a couple of conversations with you two, haven't I, afterwards, just like chatting about some of my views on previous things that you covered.
I was really impressed because you kind of wrote like an essay basically. I was like, I didn't know you'd be that engaged, so I was quite impressed. Yeah.
Call it boredom.
well, it's productive.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do like.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I do like this. In terms of what's written within it, like I think it's smart. It's clever because of the timeless factor of it. It does speak to the struggles.
I'll ask you a direct question. Do you think he's trying to avoid providing an answer, or do you think he can't provide an answer? Because I can still sense your frustration a little bit. Yeah. What do you think? Is he avoiding? Because he does lay out the questions clearly, but the answer is very ambiguous in a way. Do you think he's trying not to answer the question?
I think so. I mean, I don't think he knows the answer because if he did, he'd be a genius right now. But the ambiguity in it, I think, puts the onus on the listener to challenge themselves to the answer of the question instead of leaving it to him to provide the answer and get people thinking. In the same way, again, I'm not putting myself next to Dylan in any way, but when I went on my Insta and
I'm surprised you're not, man.
Yeah, my head has shrunk as years have gone by. But when I challenged my friends as to why they didn't post, it was like I knew the answer in a way, but I wanted them to think about it and provide the answer themselves as to why it is that they felt uncomfortable talking about it, so that I could open that dialogue and then find that solution with them together. But yeah, I could have just put in my post, you guys need to talk about this because XXX. But that it's that whole thing of teach men how to fish versus providing a person with fish. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what he's trying to do here. He's trying to get the listener to consider the questions he's asking. I'm thinking, actually, how many times
engage with it?
Yeah, exactly. How many deaths will it take before too many people have died? When is enough enough? So yeah,
exactly. Like how many times do we need to tell you the obvious before you actually see it? Yeah. Filippo, I know you haven't built yourself up to listen to a lot of Bob Dylan. Why is that? Are you waiting for the right time, or what's the situation?
My situation is that currently I need to I need to do it. I still need to do it. Yeah.
Because I respect your mind, man. So you need to get in there, and because I
Yeah,
remember
I
when
need to
you
have
got
the right
Ratchet.
mindset for Dylan. So I
Yeah,
want
I
to be
remember when I remember.
respectful towards him. You know.
Fair play. I remember when you latched onto Pink Floyd. I was like, yes, this because I know you have great taste anyway. So, but I mean, so let's go to the side a little bit. I think my girlfriend, who's Italian, has experienced racism in the UK, and that's another dimension entirely because it's like, okay, there are various grades of white, right? Filippo, have you ever experienced racism in your time in the UK, or even amongst other
It's
races? Have you
another form of racism. You know, sometimes when you were playing football with people indoor, there were some British calling you "wop." You know.
Okay.
You know
Right.
you know this slang, right?
No.
I've heard of it. Yeah. Oh,
So it
you haven't
means
touched it. Okay.
without papers. Means that
Interesting.
it's an
that's
Italian.
that's.
It's a It's
I didn't even know
related
how
to
to
the
come with this shit, man.
period of the immigration of the Italians in the U.S. You know,
Yes.
we were all coming in the boats and without papers, so they are calling wops. So it's a racist
Interesting.
insult. But you know, also I perceive another kind of stereotyping, like that there is a lot of classism in the UK.
Yes.
Even more
Yes.
than the color of your skin. You know, if you're covering a certain position, no matter if you are yellow, black, white, or whatever, but they are treating you in a different way if you are covering one specific position in the
Demographic.
society. Yeah, and this is
Exactly.
something that
Yeah.
I don't get because I don't like, honestly. You know,
Well, I know what
it's
you mean
another
because
huge problem in my opinion.
it's a huge problem because so imagine so it's almost like you have the black and white thing, but then you have the black white and you have the how much money do you have? Who's your dad? Where
Yeah,
did you
there are many
study?
clusters. Yeah.
The Mary clusters of human depravity.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sure,
I don't
sure.
know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how we do it, man. Honestly, it's like,
Yeah.
But
and
from the
I
racial
was
point of view, I don't fucking care, you know. I'm so proud
yeah,
of, let's say, the way I think that you can call me son of a bitch, you can call me wops. I don't fucking care. I'm still here and I can still speak to the
yeah,
world, you know.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
the
I
main
think
suggestion I can give without having any position of power to change the things. You know, I can support in protests. I can support with my speech in order to raise my voice. But this is the suggestion I would give to my nephew, maybe if I will have in
yeah,
the future. If
yeah.
is
Why not?
in a
Why not?
condition of racism.
Patience.
No, just keep your chin up and go ahead. Bring your
Yeah,
ideas and your view of the world without paying attention to people. People can only see the constraints of the life. This kind of people, these cops killing George Floyd, is a person that it's first of all a criminal. Second, it's a racist,
yeah.
absolutely. And third point is a person that is having a view of the life about only constraints. He's not seeing anything positive in the diversity and in whatever things, you know.
You know, when I saw his mugshot, I saw fear in his eyes, which I can't really
Yeah, it's for
explain.
sure a retard from the face. You can tell. Come on, it's a police
Yeah,
because he couldn't find a better job. You know,
yeah,
he's a
and
criminal. He's a criminal.
yeah, I saw fear in his eyes, right, and that's what it comes down to. I think people who commit these sort of atrocities, they have no respect for human dignity, and um, they're fighting against something bigger than them, almost demonic, right? And I saw his face. I was like, this guy just looks scared, and he's lashing out at the world. I was like, okay, this is a complicated problem, right?
Did you also see, guys, the policeman shoving
the
old
75-year-old,
guy
yeah,
on the ground
Mhm.
like that without doing
I
anything?
you know that
Come
I
on.
saw that I saw that at 8 a.m. in the morning, right? I was just like from
Yeah.
my computer and was on Twitter, and I was half asleep, and I saw this police officer push this white guy, 75 years old, and
Come
I
on.
saw blood gushing out, like graphic. It was graphic, like they didn't censor it, and I thought I was watching like a cartoon because like, wait, what? Like, what is going on? Like, did that just happen? Because
Also, the
I've
two
never
white policemen
seen.
arresting an FBI black guy. You remember the link I shared to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is where I feel there needs to be a collective of like-minded individuals. You need what's the term? You need that mass of individuals that can go, you know what, enough is enough. And I remember, Siji, we spoke earlier in the week, and you said that you were exhausted. And Tommy said the same thing as well. Tommy's my sister. Listeners, I'm sure you don't care, but she's my sister. Yeah, she's the vegan Nigerian. So go check her out. She's famous. So, but anyway,
how much she paid for that
she
plug?
said she was. We'll sort that out later. Don't worry. Yeah. She said she was exhausted, and I felt myself getting exhausted, but then I kind of switched my tactics. So I think for anyone who's listening, I think it's exhausting being angry consistently. You need to also learn, and almost like you're training for something, right? You can't do the same exercise over and over again. You need to do the arms, you need to do the legs, you need to work your mind, you need to rest.
Yeah.
Because it's not
It's
not
stressing the same way as other things. Yeah.
Yeah. It's because it's not a sprint. This is a marathon. This could be for the rest of our lives, basically. So it's important to kind of like gauge everything. Like, okay, I need to step back a little bit and kind of reflect and maybe read this, read that, just so that you're also armed. Because Tony used a term called gaslighting, which means that a racist can come up to you and use a term or a phrase, and you're like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And it's like, does that mean that he's right? Of course not. Well, it just means that you need to be a little more informed on your situation as well, so that. And again, I'll kind of say this again. I don't think I need to justify my existence to anyone. Right, if you can't figure it out, that's no, honestly, that's your problem, right? I mean, I have better things to do with my life anyway, but there needs to be an effort on our parts, black, white, whatever, to be constantly informed, especially if we're trying to fight for the right sort of change, so that no one gaslights you and makes you have a setback, because that can be easily done. Because there are a lot of smart people in the world who are racist. They can counter every argument that you're not human. Of course, and the bottom line is that they're wrong. But the world is such a manipulative place that they can trip you up, and you have to kind of find your bearing again. It's just life, right? So, yeah. Shuji, before we go, tell the people what you do, man, because you're a beacon of any community, really. You're such a good guy. So tell us what you do,
man. Before I do that, I just want to touch on something you both said, because I think you both alluded to it, and I think it goes beyond just race, and it's about privilege. So you're both familiar with the term privilege, right?
Yeah.
Where certain people have advantage over others, and that's what happens when it comes to race in a way. There's something called white privilege. White people, because of the way society's been set up and history, have a privilege in the way that they can behave and do certain things or get certain things that black people can't, and that's what we're fighting out against. But there's more than just white privilege. There's gender privilege. us three as men, we've been entitled to certain preferences of treatment that women just don't have. And in the same way that, you know, I'm campaigning and pushing for racial equality, I think it's you know, it's hypocritical for me to not look at other movements like that of women's rights and women having equality because of and not using my privilege as a man to help them with their cause. And there's so many other privileges out there. There's you know, there's sexuality, there's all sorts of different ones out there, and it's about using your position, as you said, Tola. It's about becoming informed, educating yourself, understanding, like not just being stuck in your viewpoint because it's convenient for you, and applying that to the world. And I think if everyone could do that, I know I'm now talking very kind of, you know, idealistic. But if everyone could do that, then the world would be a better place. If everyone who was saying all lives matters in response to Black Lives Matters said it in a way that all lives matter, which means Black lives should matter too, or to make sure all lives matter, everyone has to matter and be equal. If they said that, I wouldn't have an issue with all lives matter phrase. But at the moment, that's not the reality of a situation. And it's being used from the situation. So that's kind of my last kind of 2 cents on that topic.
I mean, before you introduce yourself properly, I actually, the article I sent you yesterday was based on that very topic of all lives matter. So I wrote that. I think I don't know what happened, but the thought just came to me. I think I heard someone mention that phrase, and I think I just said, okay, I need to actually say something about this. So check it out. It's like a 3-minute read.
You linked it to me. I'll check it out straight after this, bro.
Exactly, yeah. Because I think the idea is, I think anyone that uses that phrase is manipulative. Simple as that. I think they're conflating a lot of things, and they're refusing to acknowledge that Black people don't feel that their lives matter. That is the underlying current of that statement. Black lives matter. We're saying Black lives matter because you, as people, don't see our people as mattering, right? So, as much as I agree that all lives matter, that's not the point. As simple as that. That's not the point of the conversation. It's almost, and there's somebody saying in the article, I was like, Black Lives Matter is like E equals MC squared. You need to unpack it. It's elegant and it's simple, and you can deal with it deceptively, simply. But there's so much more to that statement than Black Lives Matter. It means, again, uncover it, because Black people don't feel that lives matter. All the races on the dark side, let's put it that way, don't feel our lives matter, and it's been that way for centuries. Even some Black people don't feel that all the Black lives matter. You know, that Black people who actually hate themselves and their race. You know, so that's where you get into the really, really dark and murky side of things. So when I hear all lives matter, I think it's manipulative. I think it's deceptive. I think it's ignorant. So yeah, but let's leave that there. Siji, tell us what you do, man.
Yeah. So I work for a digital agency. I work in the world of
plug your shit, man.
Plug myself, yeah. So exactly, I work in the world of digital on the agency side. So I help companies, or my company helps other companies and brands with their digital strategy, their websites, their apps. We're very much focused on user experience. So we do everything from the UX to the design to the development and the ongoing marketing strategy. So my role at the agency is growth director. So I essentially look after all the client relationships and the strategy around that, as well as the new business side to actually bring in new clients on board. So yeah, I've been doing that for probably about 10 years now. So that's kind of me, yeah. Kind of been about
you're ready
quite
to retire, right?
Nice. I feel ready to retire. Unfortunately, the money ain't quite at the level yet, but no, I'm happy for what I do. I like helping. Like it uses the skills I think I have well. And yes, it's a good. What I like about it is when I started at the agency, it was a relatively small. I think it was like 10 or so people. We're now 60 plus people. We work with some really good clients, such as Bank of England, Sport England, like big names, and we're really good at what we do. So it is enjoyable going to work, and I think it's because it links into what we've just been talking about. There's a like diversity is actually kind of built into the company.
Well,
I mean, good. I mean, yes, I'm the only black person on the board, but there's only like 5 or 6 people. But within the company, it's diverse from a race perspective and a gender perspective. And we did something, it was yesterday actually, which I thought was really powerful. So off the back of the things I've been writing on social media, I had a chat with our CEO, and in our all company meeting on Friday, we had a session or section of it just dedicated to the issue of race, where but one of the things I said in my article was check in with your black colleagues, find out how they're doing. Don't pretend like nothing's happened, because even if they don't want to talk about it, they'll appreciate the fact that you've checked in and you want to know how they feel. So we had this exactly. After the article, I kind of explained it a bit my perspective, and then the amount of people who kind of spoke up in the meeting. It was all virtual, of course, because of lockdown and that. But the amount of people who spoke up and gave their own experiences of racism for black people in the team, it opened the eyes of a lot of our white colleagues as to the kind of things we face, but we've never spoken about to any of them before. And white people shared their own perspective on, how they see it and why they maybe haven't spoken up on or about. But it's at the end there was a consensus that things do need to change, and even if we can change it within inside of that, we're contributing to the wider goal of things. And I think that's from what's happening on LinkedIn.
That's very wise. That's very wise. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's happened. Like within my LinkedIn, I'm getting messages from people saying, after reading your article, I've gone into my company. I shared it. I've spoken to people, and now we're talking about the subject. So there's companies now who are talking about it and engaging in the subject, which they weren't doing before. And that's why I'm quite excited, because I think if that momentum can continue, if people build up the courage to speak about it, then there will be change. But if we all, as the song says, like look away, turn away from this situation, then we're just going to be right back in the same place in 5 years' time.
Wow, well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Safe. Philly. Yeah, man. I think let's try to round this up. Filippo, do you have any last words before we kill you?
Mercy.
Don't say all lives
Mercy.
Mercy. That's the Italian way.
That's the time of mercy.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Yeah, I think this was awesome. I was trying to get it out to as many people as possible because I think people need to hear this. And I think that will happen over time. So I think the quality of the work is good. The conversation was excellent. And we just keep pushing forward, basically. Shoot you all the best with everything. Let's try to catch up at some point.
Bless, bro, bless.
Thanks for...
like, you two keep doing what you're doing. Like, I do engage in the podcast. I find it interesting. It's making me find my love of poetry again. So continue with what you're doing. And it's been a pleasure being part of it.
Hope to meet you soon, Luigi. Hope to meet you soon in the UK, or in Italy.
Is he calling himself Luigi or me? I'm not sure.
No, he's calling you Luigi. Because I said, hey, my
Luigi.
cousin's name is Siji. And he said, oh, it sounds like Luigi. I'm going to call him Luigi. I was like, all right.
Yeah, that's the Italian
let's see how that
version
goes
of your
down.
name. The Italian version, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're lucky I'm exhausted because I have a rant about that too, but I'll leave that for another day.
Yeah. All right, guys. That was brilliant. Take care of yourselves. Philip, we have to catch up and sort this out for next week as well. So
sure.
Thank you for listening. If you're listening,
may the cow be with you, guys.
May the cow be with you. Exactly. All right, guys. Peace and love.
Peace. Take care. Bye.
All right, guys. Bye.